Hey, everybody, welcome to If I'm Being Honest, straight talk about book publishing and promotion. My name's Joel Pitney,
And I'm Sadie Walker.
and today we are going to be talking about a topic that we are both very passionate, which is why all authors, regardless of your marketing expertise, need to engage with your own marketing at least to some degree.
hmm Yeah, it's something that we run into with every single author that we work with, that they need to take the helm, right, of their marketing ship. And that doesn't mean that you have to know how to do every single thing because you won't, nobody does, but you need to be in the driver's seat.
Awesome. So we're going to dive into this topic. We're going to unpack it, and we're going to also talk about some things that you can do to actually become a marketer yourself. But before we do that, if you enjoy this podcast, please be sure to like and rate and subscribe to us on any platform where you get your content. All right. So, like so many of these topics, Sadie, the reason that we wanted to talk about this is because we're in the field every day working with
Mhm.
authors.
Mhm.
Um, And we have started to notice that there's a mindset that a lot of people have coming into their author journey. And this is consistent between authors who are traditionally published, authors who are self published, authors who consider themselves to be pretty, have some experience doing marketing, all the way down to authors who feel like they're a total neophyte when it comes to book marketing. And the mindset that we've noticed a lot is that we like to call it I pay you, you sell books. And it's this thing that a lot of the people we work with they'll call me up and they'll say, "Hey Joel, I heard that you're a company that does marketing for books. I've got this book, uh, and I just want to be able to write. I want to write my novel. I want to write my memoir. I want to write my business book, and I need someone who can sell it for me because I don't know anything about selling, or I don't have any time to do marketing, or I can barely use a computer. So all this social media and digital marketing stuff is overwhelming. So you, the marketing company, can you guys come on board and just help us? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's such a common situation that a lot of authors are in. And I think we have a lot of sympathy and empathy for people in that situation. You just wrote a book. You are an expert in whatever that topic was, or you just have a passion for creative writing and you love to write thrillers or romance novels or fantasy. You don't know how to sell that book. That's not, you didn't go to marketing college. You're not an expert in any regard. And so they're looking for someone that they can just pay some money and that person will sell their books or that company will sell their books. And unfortunately, there's a lot of companies out there that will take advantage of that mindset and be like, yeah, we'll sell books for you and it costs, X amount of dollars. And one of the things that we're always trying to do at Launch My Book and through this podcast is make sure that authors are making educated, informed decisions. And with that, we feel inclined to let people know marketing is really hard and there is no one size fits all solution. There's no, you throw money at it and you'll sell books. That is not how it works.
Yep.
And so it's much more complicated than that. And the authors who are successful, whether they're self-published, traditional published, gone through some sort of hybrid situation, are the ones that are invested in their marketing to some degree.
Yep, that's absolutely right. And I just want to emphasize this as well. This is also the same with traditionally published authors, right? And I've worked with a lot of people as a ghostwriter, as a marketer, et cetera, who are on the traditional side of the fence. And they think that once you get a traditional publishing deal, you've made it. That publisher is going to step in and just sell that book for you. And anybody who's ever been in that situation probably knows that that is not the truth.
Right.
So what we, as Sadie referred, sort of hinted at, we've discovered over the years working with authors of all stripes, all genres, different publishing pathways, the ones who succeed are the ones who become hustlers.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those people were hustlers by nature, right? They're already knew how to market, loved to figure out how to sell their books to people. And some people were felt like fish out of water. But in either case, the authors who succeed are the ones who roll up their sleeves and basically own the
Hmm.
marketing side of their work. And granted, these are people who've even hired us to do different marketing services, right? But the ones who succeed are the ones who are in charge of their marketing campaign and hiring experts or services within that larger context.
I remember talking with one of our authors many years ago, Lorraine Brodick, who wrote a fabulous memoir on growing up in Hollywood. And we've done marketing services for her. She's paid us to run some promotions and do some things. But I remember I was chatting with her, and I share this with almost every single client that we work with. And Lorraine said to me, she said, if you don't believe in your book, no one else will. And when you talk about hustling, even though Lorraine did invest money and time into marketing campaigns, her success and the reason that that book did so well was because she was constantly talking about it to anyone who would listen. And she sat on boards at her hospital and she knew the principal at the school. And she just would say, hey, I wrote a book. And she would talk about it. And she was really excited to talk about it and tell them about this book that she wrote. She was proud of it. And that opened so many doors for her. She wasn't on the cover, but she was in Phoenix magazine. It's their like top 40 people of the year or something. And so those doors and those opportunities will kind of open in unexpected places. And if you are only seeking outside validation for how great your book is, which totally get, we all are, you are going to miss out on some of those opportunities. And so, Lorraine's advice was to talk about your book with everyone and be excited about it. Hey, I wrote a book. Did you know I wrote a book? And see where that leads to. Because for her, it led to speaking engagements. She read at schools. She was in Phoenix magazine. She was featured on TV. She got a lot of local publicity in her area that then led to bigger things. And we were coming along beside her and running some marketing campaigns for her that also gave her a nice boost. But the majority of her success was because of the work that she did herself.
Yep. And a lot of people, I mean, this is part of the equation. A lot of people overlook the details. They overlook the small stuff that Lorraine was advocating, right?
Mhm.
They think that there's some magic formula, some PR firm that they can hire, some national media tour that they can go on, or some kind of big influencer that they can connect with who's gonna sort of magically take their book and go from 0 to 60 overnight. And that's often why people will hire companies because a lot of companies say, "Oh, well, we're going to bring this to you,"
Hmm.
or why a lot of people they just never get over the failure to launch because they're so intimidated and they feel like the only way that they can do marketing well is to hit these highfalutin, big, sophisticated, savvy, perceptions of what marketing a book actually looks like. When there's all these little things that just start right at home. They start
Yep.
with what you already have, the people you know. I mean, or as Lorraine said, loving and believing in your own book
Mhm.
and then being willing to just talk about it. It's like a snowball effect, right? It starts small, it grows, it grows, it grows. If you ever want the big people or the big media outlets to ever take you seriously, you have to start small.
Yep.
That's kind of how the game works. And um, starting small is almost always going to be up to you. It's not going to be anything anyone else can do for you.
Right. Yeah, we were just working on a campaign for an author. She's traditionally published, and her book launched earlier in May, and she'd been working on it for many years. And again, we had helped with some of that. We did some platform building for her, helped her with an author website, things like that. And on launch day, we had helped come up with a strategy for her to reach out to her friends, her family, her colleagues, people she used to work with in Washington, D.C., former professors that she worked with. And, we just crafted some messaging and she started sending out emails to her network. These were not, people that we would have known or any PR firm would have been able to connect her to. These were people within her own circle and letting them know that her book was out and that they could go buy a copy for a friend, leave a review. And the response was astronomical. She had such a warm welcome on launch day. She sold so many books on launch day and it was all just from that network of people that, like you said earlier, we often overlook. We want to shoot for national media, or at least, regional media, influencers, other authors, and we're not thinking about the people that we know in our own circles that also have connections that can help champion your book and are excited to help champion your book, and they want to something to do, and they want to show that they're proud of you. And that is step one for everyone. Do not discount your friends and your family and your coworkers and, people that you've stayed connected with over the course of your life and career.
That's awesome. And Sadie has just naturally and organically jumped us into the solutions part of the podcast, which is awesome. We often like to talk about a myth in publishing or book promotion, and talk about why it's not true. And so in this, we've been talking about this sort of myth of how you can just hire someone or outsource your marketing to someone else. And so we wanted to talk about solutions as well. And we identified four of them. And the first one is the one that Sadie just talked about. So, just to add a little bit of, just so you know, for the note takers and the bullet readers out there, I want to make sure that you know we're going to talk about four different ways that you can actually take control of your marketing in the way that we're suggesting. And the first one is don't overlook what you already have.
Mm-hmm.
I have an interesting case study from a book that I ghost wrote, and this was a higher level book. We had a big publisher, an advance, agents involved, all that kind of stuff, and we hired a really fancy PR firm from New York that was very good and spent lots of money on it. And I remember during the campaign saying, okay, we can do all this, we can hire these companies, we can have the publisher do this and that. But at the end of the day, the thing that's really going to move the needle is the grassroots network of connections that this author had. You know, the people, the activists and professors and thought leaders and
Mm-hmm.
business connections that the author had developed throughout their career. And I remember having to spend a lot of time saying, no, you really need to reach out to this group. And the author was often saying, well, no, I don't really have time for that. That feels a little beneath me. Aren't I going to sound a little thirsty reaching out to people and desperate, saying, hey, go do me this favor, do me this favor, that, blah, blah, blah. Can't we just hire this firm to get me on Good Morning America and in the New York Times review of books, right? And even though the PR firm did a good job getting some coverage, at the end of the day, the thing that really moved the needle was this grassroots stuff that I was finally able to convince the author to take on. Those are the people in your networks. And
Mm-hmm.
there's this weird thing in human psychology, which I think Sadie alluded to earlier, that we tend to sort of focus on what we don't have, the
Right.
new audience. We sort of consider, we take for granted what we already have and assume that that's the less sexy aspect of the marketing. And yet, that's the group that's really going to get the snowball rolling for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's, I think, absolutely. And the more that we tell these stories and the more that we talk about these case studies and we talk about them, when we're talking with authors who may or may not hire us for a variety of reasons, it's important that this mindset become widely talked about and normalized, that starting with what you have. And I want to emphasize that because there exists in all of us sort of a need or a want for validation, especially when we're writing a book, right? Like you want to win an award, or you want to get an amazing Kirkus review, or you want to be on the New York Times bestseller list, or whatever the thing is that you're like, you want to be on Stephen Colbert, talking about your book, like whatever the thing is that you're like, that would just really, I would feel then as if I've arrived. Uh, we all understand that mindset, but it's easy to take advantage of that mindset. And so if that's what you're after, you might find yourself engaging with a company to do book marketing that says they can give you those things and they can't. And not in any way trying to bash anyone, just being keeping your feet on the ground when you are going to spend money marketing your book, that you're not being taken advantage of, and that you someone there's not someone out there who's getting your hopes up really high, like, oh yes, we can do these things for you. Because just like you said, even the expensive PR firms that have connections and do amazing work still can't do the work that you, the author, can do. You are the only one that can drive that grassroots marketing, which is actually where the value is.
Yep. So what does that look like, right? I mean, I can imagine some people listening say, "Oh," and still imagining someone else who has great networks and they're the ones who can really do this, but I can't. I don't know anyone. I'm just a school teacher. I'm a beautician or, I'm not famous. I don't know anyone important. Well, let's talk about it, right? So, how do you do that, right? How do you actually start to what do you do for your own networks? Well, um, we all have friends and we all have family, right? That is a good place to start. If you can't get them excited about your book, it's going to be hard to get a stranger excited about your book, right? And often the friends and family you have, you're often going to share interests and values and tastes. So they're probably going to like the kind of things you're writing about, right? And if you can get them excited, then starting off as sort of a favor to you, really, because they know you, all kinds of cool things can start to happen, right?
Mhm.
First of all, they're going to buy books, and if they'll often buy books for friends as gifts to support you. These are the folks who can get you your first 25 Amazon customer reviews, which is a great
Yep.
milestone for the Amazon algorithms. Can you get to 25 customer reviews? You can often find enough family and friends to get you there, right? You can also ask them for connections. It's amazing, everybody talks about what is it, the how many degrees of separation we are from Kevin Bacon, right? Everybody's like an average of 3 or 4. I forget exactly what it is. You're the one who owns a movie theater,
Yeah,
Sadie.
I think it's seven. I think it's
7,
like
okay.
7 degrees of Kevin
Seven
Bacon. Yeah.
degrees. So everybody, that means we're all connected in some way to
Yeah.
somebody through
Yes.
somebody else. And if you're willing to look through your network and think optimistically and not just quickly dismiss, quickly say, "Oh, I couldn't ask this person," or "This person couldn't possibly introduce me to that," you never know what's going to start happening. So as you get people excited about your book and ask them, "Hey, do you know anyone else?" Right? We
Hmm.
often will do this. Um, we've got a client right now who's starting to get gigs booked at different hospitals to speak to their staff about the subject of their book. And once you get one, right,
Right.
you can ask the people who helped organize that one if they could connect you to other people at other hospitals or
Right.
whatever it is, or teachers associations or book groups, or to connect you with other ones.
Yep.
And it's this little snowball effect. You just
Hmm.
you find these little opportunities and then you leverage them into the next thing.
Right.
But you can never get to the next thing unless you start with what you already have. There's literally no way to skip first base. You have to start there and then see what comes. And you have to be willing for it to be really small and seemingly insignificant in the beginning.
And you have to be willing to not actually know where it's going to go, because some of this you can't plan out. You can just be talking with a friend of yours about your books and you're really excited and they're coming out in October. And, maybe your friend knows so and so who runs a nonprofit organization that has a tie-in with one of the themes of your books, and they would love to figure out how to sell some of your books during their resource fairs or whatever. There are going to be opportunities that you can't even fathom that are only going to get to you if you are talking about your book and if you're excited about talking about your book. And certainly some of it you might, as you're looking at your own network, you might be like, okay, I definitely need to talk to my friend over here because they run a hospital and I used to work with them, and so they're going to be the first person I go to, to talk about my book. And then when you start that conversation, or you land your first speaking gig, or the local newspaper interviews you and the reporter comes out and he's talking to you about the themes of your book or how we got here, you follow that up with, who else should I talk to? Like, great, do you know anyone else who might be interested in this? That is an easy, low hanging, thank you so much for having me. Is there anyone else that you think I should talk to about this? And it puts, it puts the question on them to think about, like, oh yeah, okay, who else might be interested in having you as a speaker, or who else might be interested in doing an expo on your book. and sometimes there will be nothing, but I used to work as a journalist, and that was my favorite last question to ask people was, who else should I talk to? There was always someone. And so you take the opportunity and you be grateful for the opportunity to talk to someone, speak, whatever the thing is, and then you leverage it and you say, who else? Where else should I go? And what other book clubs do you know of that might be interested in this book? Whatever the situation is, and something will happen.
It always does.
Hmm.
So this has been our first point, which is to don't overlook the networks you already have. And we actually have a video on our website called Three Ways to Mobilize Your Tribe to Launch Your Book or something along those lines. We'll put a link in the show notes. We go into, you know, much greater depth on this topic and give a lot of tactics and tools for how to do this kind of thing. But I want to move on to our next point. But before we do, if you're enjoying this episode, we're trying to reach lots and lots and lots of people, writers, authors out there who need this kind of advice and kind of help to publish, write, and promote their books. And a great way to do that is to share this episode or like it or subscribe to it or comment on it on whatever your platform is. So, point number 2 in how to take command of your own marketing, even if you feel a little nervous about it, is to start some kind of a platform. And that can be intimidating for people,
Hmm.
because what is platform? When people hear platform, a lot of people just think, oh, TikTok. I can't do TikTok. What are you talking about? Or
Right.
I don't know anything about that, right? Platform, we like to define platform very loosely. Platform is some kind of consistent content that you are generating that will appeal to your target audience.
Hmm.
Now, that content can take many forms. And one of Sadie and I's golden rules of platform building is you have to figure out the platforms and the forms of content that you're actually comfortable with.
Right.
You can't try to be a square peg in a round hole.
No,
So
that's not true.
just because your son or your granddaughter has told you TikTok or Book Talk is the place to be, if you have no idea what TikTok or Book Talk is, you're uncomfortable with it and you do not want to learn about it and you
Hmm.
do not want to be in video, don't worry. Don't do that. It's not going to work,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah, you can't, and it won't be sustainable. It'll be if your marketing, if your platform building is something that you're dreading every single day, and you're like, oh my God, I have to make another video for TikTok and I don't know what to say, then it's not going to be sustainable, and therefore it's not going to work in the long run because platform building is slow and steady. And so you have to find the thing that you enjoy. And for authors, oftentimes the thing that they enjoy is writing because they just wrote a book, right? And there's ways to, use Substack or having a blog on your website. There's ways to make writing be your platform. But I've known a lot of authors who like to get on video and like to just kind of riff, camera to face to camera type videos, or have someone else there lobbying questions at them so that they can answer questions and talk through some of their ideas, some of their thoughts. And so you have to find what you enjoy doing, and it's probably going to take some experimenting to see what that is.
You don't exactly. You do not have to figure this out in advance. You can start early and you can experiment and
Hmm.
see what works, see what you like, see what you don't like. I mean, Sadie and I have learned we like this.
Yeah.
We've tried all kinds of different content we like to talk about these different points and we like to talk about them with each other because we do this all the time.
All the time.
And we also like to talk to other people in the book industry, professionals, other authors who have succeeded. We like to just explore things together.
Mhm.
We also like writing, but there's something really cool about the chemistry of getting on camera and recording an audio and a video
Yeah.
conversation about these really cool topics. And so,
And we've had authors who have started podcasts.
yep,
As they're moving through the publishing process, have started a podcast, launched a podcast so that they can talk about their expertise, their themes in the book, and as a way to just get some of those initial ideas out before the book even launches. And so that's an option too. You don't have to spend all your time pitching yourself as a guest on someone else's podcast, although that's a great tactic as well. You can, start your own and just go, and for in the beginning, you're going to be talking into the void. That's just natural, but it's good because you can practice that way and you can start to kind of get a feel for the kind of content that you're creating and what you're enjoying and what you're good at, how long it takes you, and then eventually, it will start to you'll start to get some listeners, or you'll start to get some followers. You'll start to, once again though, you start with the people that you know. You start your Facebook page for your author business, for your new author kind of career, and you share it with all of your friends and family and say, please go like my new Facebook page and follow along on this journey with me. It would mean a lot. And what are they going to do? They're going to go follow it, and they're going to start liking your posts and encouraging you. And that is going to help more people find you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's the platform piece of this, right? And again, there's a lot more to doing platforms, but it's the kind of thing, there's also a ton of information out there that you can start engaging with. We've got a lot on our website. You can go to Jane Friedman's website. She's got all kinds of great resources on
Mhm.
that. And, Google and ChatGPT are your friend here. But at the end of the day, you have to remember that you're the one who is going to figure out what your platform is going to be. You can get expert feedback, you can get expert input, but you're going to have to experiment stuff, and you're going to, with the different things, and you're going to have to make those decisions at the end of the day about what works for you.
Yep.
And it's got to feel right. It
Hmm.
really does have to feel right.
Hmm.
So that leads us to our next point. So we've covered don't overlooking the network that you have, starting some kind of a platform. And then the third point is start slow.
Hmm.
And this is honestly related to the first 2 points in a lot of ways. But a lot of people want to just jump right into it, right? Or want they need they need their marketing efforts to be yielding fruit immediately.
Right.
And as we've been talking about, it just isn't that way, right? You're not gonna, just because you didn't get 1 million followers on your account that you just launched, or because your book didn't vault up to #1 ranking the first week that it was launched, doesn't mean that it's not succeeding or it
Right.
can't be successful. It doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong, that the experiment has failed.
Hmm.
Because,
Absolutely. And with that, don't give up too soon. I think
yep,
that's I think we can all kind of uh, recognize that maybe we're watching someone else do this, um, on, maybe we're following their platform, or we listen to their podcast, or we were a fan of their writing and we've bought all their books, and you're kind of seeing these other people out there who are doing this thing that you're like, yes, I want to do that. And so then your measure of whether or not you're successful might look like that other author, and how many followers they have, and how often they're posting to YouTube, or whatever the thing is. But they started somewhere also. And what I tell authors who often will come to me with you know, a, with like almost an author crush, right? They're like, well, so and so over here on TikTok, and I'll say, that's great. Go back as far as you can and look at their first TikTok videos. Look at the first posts that they did on Instagram and see how many likes they got and how many comments they got. Everybody starts at square one. It does not matter who you are. And so it's a slow build. It has to be a sustainable build. And it's good to have those goals in mind of where you want to be, but don't give up too fast, because this kind of thing can take years. It can take years. And sometimes, your first book doesn't take off until you write a second book. Like, this is not an overnight. I think we harp on this all the time, but book marketing and author success doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in the first week. It doesn't happen on launch day.
amen to that. And uh, I think we've covered that point pretty well, Sadie. And I'd like to move into the last point, the
Yeah.
fourth one. And by the way, these four are by no means exhaustive. There are probably 17 to 97 points
Yeah.
on this topic. How do you actually take over and take command? But what we wanted to do is kind of distill some of, four of the more salient points that people can use to kind of get over the hump and really start being their own marketer. So the last one is has to do with when you should spend money and how much should you spend, right?
Right.
Because a lot of people think they can just solve the problem with money. And as a company that people pay to do marketing, one of the
Hmm.
first things I often tell them is you're probably not ready to spend a lot of money yet on this.
Hmm.
You shouldn't hire us yet. I don't like people to throw money at us to solve their marketing for them unless they already have some other things in place,
Hmm.
right? That doesn't mean that it's okay. Some people have some money to invest in their book and they can go ahead and just spend it on marketing services, et cetera. And that's fine. But if you really want to build something successful long term, you really want to be frugal in the beginning with your money. You can't
Hmm.
expect you're not going to get a great ROI right out of the gates, right? And there's kind of two big reasons for that. So the first one is um, you need to experiment, as we've been talking about. You need some time to kind of figure out, well, who is your target audience really? What is your key selling point? What's working with the market? What is your platform? What is the thing that you like to do
Hmm.
that you can sustain and that people are engaging with, right? Um, you you need to gain a little momentum, right? Like, uh, wouldn't it be you want to get those first 25 to 50 customer reviews before you
Yeah.
start pushing a bunch of other people to your site? Because guess what? If someone shows up on your Amazon page and they see that you have no customer reviews, they're going to be less likely to make a purchase
Right.
than if they have 38 customer reviews. And so you don't want to be throwing good money um, uh, at your book too early.
Amen to that. Yeah. And it's, I mean, again, this just kind of comes back to the whole point of our podcast and of our platform and what we are trying to accomplish is in the education space is, yeah, you can pay us to do marketing. There's all kinds of companies that you can pay us to do marketing, but should you or should you wait? And sometimes, almost always, the better option is just to wait, to take it slow, do some of this initial work yourself, get the book off the ground yourself through your networks, through building your own platform, and then maybe invest some dollars in marketing. So when do you think, Joel, an author would be ready to spend some money marketing?
Well, that's a relative question, of course. Uh, to me, you can spend some money to get to build some of the things that we've talked about, right? Like your platform, getting the basics of your platform together. But you should be doing most of the work. You shouldn't be hiring someone to build a platform for you. You could hire someone to build a website that'll support your platform. But don't hire companies to go out there and create a bunch of social media content, all that kind of stuff for you. That doesn't make sense. You got to figure out how to do it yourself. You might get an assistant who can help you publish some of that content, but it's got to be generated yourself. So the time that you want to start spending money, there's got to be a few things in place. So the first thing is you need to have a platform, right? I think of the platform as the soil of your garden, right? You can't just throw fertilizer on a bad soil. You need good soil first, and then you can add some, nice organic fertilizer to that really awesome soil. It's going to do better. So you want to make sure that you've at least established some semblance of a platform. And that means that when you do start spending money to promote yourself through advertisements or different types of things, people are going to see that you're more legit. And
Right.
also, they're going to have a way to stick with you besides just buying your book. They're going to have a blog they could subscribe to or a TikTok channel that they could watch or whatever, right? So you want to have that infrastructure in place. Um, that's kind of the minimum, I think, having your book out there, having that platform established. And then, what's ideal, the ideal to place to start really investing more money is having multiple books
Mm.
or having a way to monetize the sale of a single book into something more. And this is a really common thing in the book industry. And everybody that I talk to, when they're being honest, agrees on this, right? If you're a fiction author, you need to have that next book ready,
Yeah.
right? Before you start spending big money, because when you're doing advertisements or promotions or different types of things, you're not going to make your money back on a single book, right? You're going to spend more money to get someone to buy a book than you're going to make in royalties, even if
Right.
you're self-publishing.
Right.
That's just the way the math works. And I'm confident in that math. I've talked to hundreds of people and they tend to agree.
Right.
Very
Yeah.
successful authors. Where
Absolutely.
you start to make your money is when that person reads that first book that you've kind of paid them to read in a way
Hmm.
and love it so much that they want to do the next thing. And if that's nonfiction, maybe it means signing up for your course, right? Or booking you as a consultant, depending on what your model is. If you're a fiction author, it might be reading the book two in the series, Or if you don't write series, maybe it's like, oh, I love this, sci-fi book about robot spiders.
Yeah.
I want to read the other sci-fi book about, I don't know, demon dolphins or something. Sorry, I'm not very good with sci-fi. Um, so you want to have that second product, and that's free,
Right.
right? So you lose money to get them interested, but then once they like it, they're going to buy your other
Right.
books, and
So
you're going to pay
you're
$0 for that.
in a way you're investing in readership, right? Your marketing dollars are not so much about selling your book and recouping that through royalties. You're investing in finding a reader who then is going to want to read the rest of your collection. And I'm an avid fiction reader. I also read nonfiction, but I love fiction. And I last summer was given sent an advertisement through Amazon based on other books that I had read that said, "Hey, you might like Southern Book Club's Guide for Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix." And I'm in publishing and book marketing, and I said to myself, that's the greatest title of a book I think I've ever. And I bought it because I loved the title. Took me a couple months. It was a thick, hefty book. Took me a couple months to sit down and actually read through it. And then I immediately gave it to my sister and I said, you have to read this book. And then from there, we spent our entire summer reading through Grady Hendrix's entire collection of books, all based on one Amazon ad for one book. Wasn't his first, it was kind of more in the middle of his collection. And then we read all of his books. And if you can find your readers, they will read through your collection. If the book is good and if it appeals to the audience that you're targeting, then that's all the social capital and proof that you need to invest in that first book. So I just want to drive that point home that having more than one book can make all of the difference, especially like you said, if you are monetizing that first book to grab readers into, and it doesn't even have to be a series. It can just be like these are the kinds of books that I love to write and I publish, and finding the readers for those.
Yep. And look, the theme running through all this is that readers need to have a way to continue to engage with you,
Yeah.
right? That's the, whether it's a platform that they can go subscribe to after they read your book or another book they can read or something. There needs to be something established.
And I
Otherwise,
think
the math just doesn't work out.
And I think we're seeing that trend more and more with a lot of the authors that we're working with. It's becoming more standard at the end of the book to have some sort of call to action page,
Yep.
some way, whether it goes to your website or your Substack or your podcast, some way that readers, when they finish your book, can stay connected with you so that you can stay connected with them and let them know when book two is coming out. Or, we have some authors right now who we're in the middle of publishing book one and they're already thinking about and working on and planning the launch for book two, recognizing that you have to have multiple books to build a community.
There you go. So I think Sadie and I could go on and on about this, and we probably will, tomorrow, because it's one of our favorite topics. But I hope that's all the time we have on this episode, I believe. And I hope that everybody's found this useful. If you have, please like, share, subscribe, all the good things. If you ever have any questions about any of this, you can reach out to either of us, Joel at launchmybook.com and Sadie at launchmybook.com. You can check out our company as well. Check out all our other content on the podcast, on our website. We're out here to try and help people. That's what we're doing. So we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear any questions you might have. And I hope that this will inspire you and empower you to be your own marketing boss and kind of step up to the plate and figure out how to do this. So
Till next time.